everybody, and welcome back to What's Your Wrangle? I'm your host, Jennifer Shannon, and we have a podcast talking about all of the things that go into an innovation framework. And this season on the podcast, we're really digging into what some of those pillars are. And today I'm really excited to be talking about lean, agile, and quality and the role that that plays in the projects that you're building as part of your innovation or transformation projects. Could not think of two better people to join me today than Payal Vermani and Myron Parks. Welcome, folks.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so glad to have you on the show. Really, really happy.
Likewise.
I just wondered if you could just take a minute, and maybe Payal, we'll start with you, just to give me a bit about your background and also what your mandate here is at Rangle. So what are some of the things that you're doing here at Rangle?
Oh, long story. So I don't know how far back I want to go, but education-wise, started off as an engineer.
Oh, okay.
So I was a software engineer from Ottawa U, started off as a developer down in the weeds, working back then what was the way to work.
Yes.
Got introduced to Agile when I moved to Silicon Valley. So that was back in 2007.
Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got some stories.
Yeah. Oh, too many. So I was working in Santa Clara, and we had a day where they shut down the company. They brought in some consultants, and they made a week of it to be like, we're all going to be agile now because waterfall doesn't work for us. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. So I attended this week-long, what they call a Taylor boot camp, so to speak. Yep. Closed the chapter, and they said, okay, now this is what we're going to do. This is the way we work. So it was a rough start because we didn't have consultants with us embedded, right? So that's not the right way to do it in hindsight. But what it did do is it just pushed me right into things to realize, okay, now how do I adapt the way we work on my team, and how do we continue to deliver what we've been delivering? So that was how I sort of got started. Did a few consulting gigs, traveled around, basically lived out of my suitcase consulting for good 3.5, 4 years that I was in the US. Yeah. So traveled all over, briefly lived for about 11 months in Houston, Texas. And then I decided, all right, I'm way too homesick. I need to come back. So I came, so this time around, I decided to move to GTA.
Nice.
Just because, GTA is...
Because Canada.
Hello. Yeah. Like, you just can't, right? And and anytime somebody would ask me, like, why? Like, you missed the snow? Because I was in all warmer places.
Right.
I was like, no, I miss home. I do. I really missed home.
Yeah.
So, so we moved back, and I started working for a consulting as a mobile app developer. So this is what, like, my transition, from, like, behind the scenes, embedded systems coding. Then I did front end, and then I ended up doing mobile apps. And again, I was on Agile teams, working as a contributor, and I organically rose the ranks to Scrum Master, followed by getting to Rangle, and then I organically rose to Program Management, and here I am today.
And now you are the director.
Yes.
And we're so excited about that promotion because this is an exciting time for Rangle and really reinforces our commitment to that Lean Agile methodology, which excites me.
100%, 100%. And I've been embedded so deep into it since, like, I'm aging myself, like 12 years ago.
Well, you started when you were 10, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Still in my 20s,
That's right.
Not really, lying. So for me, like, I've been there, eaten the bread and the butter, and, like, all the way through, right? So I've been at various levels to sort of know what works, what doesn't, and that is what you need in today's day and age to completely align yourself with the client. Because if you can't see what they see, or you're not able to live and breathe and fully have empathy for what their real struggles are, you can come in and give a spiel, but then that's all that is, a spiel.
Yeah. Right? But if you've been in the trenches, and then, she gets it. She understands because you're
100%.
speaking the same language, but also you have the experience, right? So
100%.
You're coming with the right approach.
100%, right? And it's important. Like, I always use the word empathy, and I truly mean it, right? Because you can't just be empathetic towards, well, this is the way we work, so we're just going to tell you how to do things.
Right.
Got to be empathetic for, like, you're solving a problem.
Right.
Understand where they're coming from. Right. Stand in their shoes. Look at their view. And then align yourself, right? And those are the engagements that are more successful. Yes. They have likelihood of actually continuing once you exit, right? Because at the end goal of a successful engagement for every client is, I want to replicate this. I want to bottle this special sauce and spread it in my organization. Right. So if you're not able to strategically align yourself at that level, you're not giving them more to keep you in for longer, right? Like, and then they want to take you everywhere. All right, let's introduce you to this department. Let's introduce you to this department. Right. So to me, crucial conversations is what it comes down to, followed by full understanding and empathy. And, don't be shy to learn from them either.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
Yes.
So they have a lot of experience in what they're doing. You may get a boiled down view of their current situation or the current problem, but you have to understand, you have to understand the journey of how they got to where they are today. Right? And then align yourself at the right times and help them continue on to a way forward that they're looking to you as subject matter experts.
Right. Myron, you have a bit of a different role here at Rangle, and I would love to hear a little bit about your background. We were just talking about how you're going to be celebrating Victoria Day here in Canada, but you are actually from the United States. Talk to me a little bit about your background and what your mandate here is at Rangle.
Yeah, so I started, I'll just talk about my education first.
Sure.
So I've studied technology, started off in the United States Navy as a radar tech, actually. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is so cool. Wow.
I have some stories about that.
I just hear beep, 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 beep. I see submarine. Yeah.
And so studied also leadership and what I like to call human potential. And so that's adult education with e-learning as well as developmental psychology / school psychology. So really looking at what people's natural aptitudes are and then working with them to get to where they want to be. So that was a pretty cool journey. Been certified in a number of agile methodologies, Scrum, SAFe, Yellow Belt, Lean Six Sigma, a number of things that help to enable service delivery or utilize quality for service delivery. And that's one of the things that I see is typically left out of that picture. So like I said before, I started in the Navy and I was actually in California, Southern California. But when I was done with the Navy, I moved back to the Midwest, and people asked me similar questions. Well, why would you come back to the snow? And I was kind of there's just something about a culture that makes sense to you at the time, at least at the time of the life. 100%. So I was first introduced to quality in that setting, in the military setting, where we did a lot of preventative maintenance, and it was set up to say, hey, we should not only be looking for problems after systems fail, because in that setting, a critical system, when a system fails, that's like a plane falling out of the sky. So we should develop systems to identify when something is more likely to fail. And so shifting left. I was learning about shifting left from engineers, when I was basically a baby. Wow. And so sort of ingrained in that thought process. Throughout my career, I worked on lots of waterfall projects for financial services primarily. And I got my first chance to work in an agile setting for a startup. They were doing migrations from...
Talk about baptism by fire.
Yeah. They were doing migrations from Windows 98 to Windows XP. And so calamity ensued.
Super cool.
Right? Yeah. And so today, my mandate at Rangle is to work with the quality practice and work with partners to build it into something that adds value throughout that entire what I call end-to-end delivery pipeline, starting with the end in mind. How do we define the problem that is required to solve in order to launch? And do that while we're developing state-of-the-art features so that the teams are doing that and we can launch quicker once we solve that problem. So that is my mandate, and to build that practice into one that enables the delivery of our agile practices and some of the systems that we are uniquely qualified to provide to our clients to realize value in the market.
Yeah. So this brings up something really interesting, which is I'm guessing that there's a ton of people watching and or listening that are thinking, okay, great, you have all of this background, but let's back up a little bit and get back to basics. I would love to hear from you, and we'll start with sort of that lean agile methodology. What is it? What does it mean? What does that mean?
So you can Google and you can read and you can, try and make sense of it.
Right.
But, I like to explain to lay people as, think of it. So lean is literally just that, right? Think of it as what's your best foot forward to get an enormous task accomplished with the least amount of overhead possible, right? So initially what happens is as organizations grow, what happens is as organizations grow, our processes expand, right? And then different levels get introduced, different layers get introduced to accommodate for various checkpoints along the process that need to happen. And there are good reasons for doing that. Eventually, though, you find yourself in a place where to get an approval, or rather a conversation to happen with a person that sits just down the cube from you, there's a chain in place, right? So you have to go through how many pieces of paper or forms to get something approved. And that's what drives frustration, and sort of like that feeling of being handcuffed, where I know what's the right approach moving forward. All I need to do is get this done. How many people am I going to have to meet with, justify, and get their sign-offs on? So I'm going to really water it down to say all that means is I don't want to say the word bare minimum, but it is just that, like, think innovative, think quick delivery, think saving money. So things like, how quickly can I get this product in the hands of my consumer, be the first to market, have them touch it, have them feel it, have them realize the value it brings? What's the quickest way there?
And get their feedback.
100%.
Right? Instantly, which is lovely, right?
Which is what we're chasing, right? Ultimately, if you haven't made the right product, that customer is not staying with you.
Right.
So we can sit and craft and discuss and fine tune it all we like. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't do what they need, they're not going to use it.
And this is something I've heard referred to in the industry as an MVP, right?
Yes.
The minimum viable product, right? So it's functional, it's on brand, it does what it's supposed to do. Let's get it out there and get some feedback.
100%, 100%. So, and again, it doesn't mean that you cut corners when it comes to meeting their demand.
Right.
All that means is focus on getting a version out there, rather than the version.
Right.
And I couldn't stress enough on that. So now if you build on top of what we've just talked about, the MVP, taking those feedback directly from the customers, bring it back into the loop, and then continuing to work on it and push versions out and versions out and versions out. Right. That's what we refer to as the iterative and incremental approach to delivery.
Right.
And that's what you hear. That's where you hear agile.
Right.
From people, right? So agile is essentially the methodology and the approach. And then there's various frameworks you can implement within there. Right. So a very popular one, for example, will be Scrum. Mm-hmm. Most people have heard of Scrum. Unfortunately, what happens is people adopt the daily Scrum, but they don't go the entire way.
Right.
And then we're back to square one. So it's not just let's talk every day about what we're doing. It's how we work.
Right.
To get that product iteratively, built incrementally in the hands of the customer regularly, ingest those feedbacks, and improve upon what we get to the customer at the end of the day. Right. That's the approach.
And what's interesting is as someone who has been in retail for the majority of my career,
right.
Very much used to that. Okay, this person signs off, then the advertising director or whatever. And now I am approaching and adopting this Lean-Agile methodology.
Right.
And at first it was like, ooh, like this page isn't ready. Like, oh my God, what's going to go on, right? But, you know, the way that I learned my lesson, so to speak, was I just, okay, trust and believe. I'm going to trust my peers.
Right.
You get it out there, and
Right.
all of a sudden I've got a whole pile of data happening.
Yeah.
And the content is out in the world.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, well, the way that I was going to do it was different than that. So now I'm actually going to relook at this. And I went, okay, I'm an evangelist now, right?
See, so
yeah.
Jen, right there, you touched on something that's crucial.
Yeah.
Trust.
Yes.
And skill.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to trust that the people we've hired, the individuals we have, are highly skilled at what they do. And we have to trust them to be able to deliver the right thing. Just enable them to be as collaborative as they need to be to get to where they need to get.
Right.
And that's all that Lean Agile stands for. It's all about collaboration. It's all about crucial conversations. And it's all about working together as a team rather than the individual mindset, right? And in all of this, what's crucial as well is the emphasis on quality. Right. And Myron can speak to that so much more.
Yeah,
but
great segue, thanks.
My specialty.
Because no, but it is really interesting because I know for sure right there that there's people out there from larger enterprises or banks that are going, okay, well, how do we even know that this is on brand or that it's doing the right thing or that it is like the quality that we would have received if we would have spent 6 months developing something and then putting it out there. So Myron, talk us down off the ledge and talk to us about the role of quality here.
Right. So the role of quality, I think, is one of the ones when talking about agile methodologies and the books and the writing and literature out there, it's one of the things that is typically not really talked about a lot.
Right.
And it's treated like something that, well, it has to happen. Let's push it until we can't push it anymore, and then, we've been able to press the team to do miracles, so let's just keep asking them to do these sort of miracles at the last minute. And so from sort of like an agile quality, how do you insert agile quality into that Scrum process or SAFe or whatever it is that you're using? And I think it starts with identifying the minimum viable product first,
right?
And then identifying what is the minimum set of problems that you have to solve in order to launch that to production. And working with the team and the product and the client to actually deliver or realize value in the market. So once, as agile practitioners within the lean agile space, once we realize that that is what we're actually doing, then the job becomes significantly simpler. We can take, with this approach, a library of 10,000 tests and bring that down to 100 tests. We can take that library of 100 tests down to 10 that we should assist and contribute to do an automated regression, so that the next time it's only 90 tests that we have to do.
Right.
These are the types of things that we can do to enable that team to launch. Because the development team, so there's one aspect that you talked about, Jen, and that is making sure this thing works. That's what we do every single day as a part of either a lean team or anything else, a lean agile team or anything else that we're doing. But the other part that we have to pay attention to is, what do we need to make sure works in order to actually launch this piece? When we look at it from a system perspective, we tend to get into those situations where there are 10,000 things that have to work for this whole thing to work, but we're working on this little segment right now.
Right.
So how do we work with this cross-functional team to develop and deliver that, not just to the end of the sprint, but to production? And if we start working on that and we start contributing to what I call an end-to-end delivery pipeline, then that's where we realize the most value, applying our agile practices across, not only during the development, but during the specification phases, as well as that delivery phase up front.
So this brings up this notion of iteration or continuous improvement. So Payal, I wonder if you could sort of walk us through this notion of continuous improvement and how we're working with partners and our clients to actually help them to use continuous improvement as a way for them to sort of feel, less stressed about putting something out there to the world. Talk to me about what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very passionate about this topic. So if I get excited, just bear with me.
No, I'm in.
So I couldn't stress enough the importance of continuous improvement, not just in the quality of what we're working on, but also in how we work, right? So let me give a little bit of context to that. Very often we will start off, typically in what I've seen in my past life, right? We start off on a project. This is the way we work. We're implementing the, let's say, Scrum methodology on this team, and off we go to the races. Throughout that journey, what you're supposed to do is inspect and adapt, right? That's the loop that, directly feeds into the whole cycle and the notion of continuous improvement. While we do that as a team with the focus on quality of the product, what we often forget, and it's just, when you get used to something and it's your day-to-day routine, it's bound to happen, is we also need to put that lens on our process, right?
Interesting.
So what happens is the team is now gone through the, the storming, the forming, and now in the norming stages. Now we know how we work together, and we sort of get into this groove. And this is where you get like those high-functioning, high-performing teams going.
Right.
Great. But is the process still doing what it's supposed to do?
Right.
Right? Is it still giving us the results? Yes. Could they be better? Have we looked at them? Have we analyzed them to realize, hey, we could probably make an improvement here. We could probably do an enhancement here. And that's what differentiates Rangle. So what we'll do is, in our approach to how we deliver, as a Scrum Master on the team, as a Program Manager on the team, not only am I looking at are things functioning and moving along and are we hitting milestones, but also how could we continually improve our process to delivery, right? So I can give you very granular examples, that have worked out for us in the field where, there've been simple little steps that they sound very simple on paper and they've made massive improvements. So for example, I have some designs, I'm a developer, I have started developing a story, off it goes to the quality person for testing. The quality person looks at the story, starts to test and goes, doesn't look exactly like the design. And there's a little back and forth happening there between the developer and the quality person to say, it doesn't look like the design, but this is the closest I can get it to look like based on the API I'm using, right? How do we improve upon that? Well, it comes up during a retrospective. We talk about it as a group. Hey, perhaps a designer could just do an over-the-shoulder check real quick before you send it off to the quality person for checking. Right? So then the quality personnel on the team can focus on just what's the final outcome of that piece of work rather than is the look and feel where it should be with respect to the design. Because it's really the designer's eye that you're after. Right? Not to say that the onus of quality is not on the entire team. It really is. And that's why the designer's brought in for an over-the-shoulder check. So these are like little things, that we've done at Rangle to enhance the experience. And I could go on, like the list is long. But, overarching sentiment there is that as a Scrum Master, as a program manager, on a project, on a program, you're continually watching for those things. Gathering that empirical data is what we call it. Be it in form of metrics, be it in form of feedback during retrospectives, be it in form of direct feedback from customers, and not only implementing it on the product side of things, but also on the process side of things. And that's your key differentiator. We're always looking to improve.
So brought up an interesting point there about the role of quality within that project team. The interesting thing that you folks do with Rangle is that deep partnership within our client teams. So, Myron, I wonder if you could talk to me about, especially teams that are just brand new to a Lean Agile methodology, how you can insert yourself in the process and have that commitment to quality as part of the process and how you evangelize to make that happen within those teams and have that trust.
Right. So one of the first things that the Agile quality practitioners can do as a part of that team is to work with that team on solving the actual problem that they're trying to get to versus my responsibility is to write test cases and write bugs. No one wants that. What we want is to develop a particular type of website. We want to put this type of deliverable out. And so if you come in as a quality practitioner within any space, really, with that mentality, then you'll join the team. And so now the first part is to build that trust, is to join the team working toward a common goal. The next thing is, once you gain that trust and they're like, all right, well, you're actually a part of that team. Now you get involved in sort of like the discovery phase and identifying what we're actually trying to accomplish. And, like Payal was talking about earlier, get involved earlier with desk checks. And that's sort of like from a lean, agile perspective and with quality in mind, that's bringing the decision or the quality decision closer to the work that's being done. So you're shifting that work forward so that when you find problems, there's less rework, and rework typically equals cost. And so that is the key metric that I look for, looking from a continuous improvement perspective. That's the key metric that I look for to add value.
So every product owner and every CFO out there just perked up and went, "Oh, what now?" Right? Because it's not just cost, but I'm assuming project drift as well. Which is really interesting.
100%.
So one of the things when a quality professional joins a team and they talk about bugs or defects, people don't hear that. They're like, okay, all right, but is the thing going to go out? Is my minimum viable product doing well? Well, actually, yeah. All right, okay, cool. And that doesn't add value. But if you're able to talk to the leadership team about rework, okay, cool. Your minimum viable product is going out, but it costs us $27,000 every time we attempt to deliver. Now you have the hooks in and you can actually put those checks closer to the work that's being done. You reduce that rework, and now that is one of the key aspects of a quality practice that is working with an agile team.
So listen, do you mind if I add to that?
Oh, please do.
Yeah. So, a very interesting point that you bring up there, right? It's also about when it's time to push it out the door,
Yeah.
is it ready?
Is it ever ready?
Yeah.
Is it right?
Yeah.
So one is
Yeah.
it ever ready? Followed by, what's the cost of pushing it out the door? Like you said, right? So
Right.
if we can reduce it down on to a regular cadence versus this, giant like release coming up, and there's a build up to it coming up in like 6 months,
Right.
you drastically reduce your cost of deploy to production. So again, as a part of continuous improvement, the other thing you should be striving towards is it's ready to be deployed to production at the end of every iteration.
Right.
Right? That's the holy grail.
Right.
And if you look at companies that are out there that are doing this on the regular,
Yep.
there's Netflix, there's Google, they do thousands, if not hundreds of, deploys per day.
Right.
Right? To production,
Yes.
actual production. You see updates and they're seamless. Nothing goes down. There's no downtime. It's just there.
Right.
Right? Now versus you could be at a client site, which is, not working at that cadence, but you can help them get there.
Right.
It may not get to 100 times a day or 1,000 times a day, that type of thing. What you can get them to, though, is at least deploy at the end of every iteration.
Yes.
Get it every time in the hands of the customer. And not only you have now mitigated that entire cost that looms on top
Right.
of deploying to production to nothing.
Right.
You've also shortened your feedback loop.
Right. And that right there is like, if there's as someone who is a new product owner within this Lean Agile methodology, what I will say is being able to get that feedback so early on and then being able to test and learn based on that early feedback has been invaluable. Like, I can't believe I ever did it any other way. It's like that's what's nuts to me, right?
Yeah.
So listen, there's a lot of people out there listening and watching that are saying to themselves, okay, listen, waterfall works for us. Like, I feel like things are getting out there. I just came back from a conference and everyone's like, yeah, no, we have a great project manager and they're getting stuff out there. Why should they care about this, guys?
Do you want me to go? It's up to you.
Well, so from a quality perspective, I'll
Yeah,
say
yeah.
to speak to something that Payal just said, it's the idea of what it takes to get something to launch. If you are taking an agile quality approach, you start working on that problem up front.
Right.
I argue that companies that can do 10, 100, even one release per day, they started with quality in mind. And they said, okay, we have a number of products that we're developing, and so we have a process for that. But let's develop delivery, like everything that we need to do in order to launch
Right.
a single time. Let's develop that as a product as well. And let's do that in an agile way so that we're making incremental process. And the team that's building the features or doing the feature development, they own that as well. And moving all the way through that process. When you specify that process and you add quality in there, i.e., here are the things that have to be done specifically for us to be able to launch it, and have a sustainable release that doesn't destroy our company or harm our reputation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can shorten your cycles down once you have that process defined. In the waterfall approach, if you take 6 months to develop the features and then you start working on that problem at the 10th hour, and no one that built the application or the features and understands it is actually available to assist those people, you're not going to have an effective process. Your testing is going to go late. Your application is going to have probably a lot more bugs than it would have than if they've been integrated the entire time. And for sure, the types of problems that are found are going to cost more. That's just been proven. So I would say those are the reasons that it's important for organizations to adopt an agile quality approach to solve those issues.
And if you, even like what you're just saying to me too, is if I think about team morale, if I think about the idea that, you're putting stuff out there and you're constantly doing the right things, like that must feel great. And the amount of stress, like I've been a part of startup for a long time, and the stress that goes into those, okay, huge release going out tonight and everybody's staying up till 2:00 in the morning, and is it going to crash the system? It just doesn't exist anymore.
No, it does not.
Which is incredible, right? Yeah.
Also, I feel like 2019, let's be real, like things move fast. Right. So yes, you may be working in an industry where waterfall's working for you, and it's not to say that waterfall or like systematic way of building where you have to have all the requirements defined up front, then you do the design, then you do the coding. Not to say that that doesn't work for certain industries, like building a house.
Right.
You would build a house in a waterfall methodology, right? Just to give a very different, out in the left field example. Reality is, in today's day and age, though, if you want to be ahead and continue to own the market share that you own, you got to keep up, right? There have been systematic changes to the way we do things that nobody saw coming. Before Uber came around, did anyone think the cab industry would ever get disrupted the way?
I mean, we did, but we didn't do anything about it.
But that's right.
Right, yeah.
Or the app economy. Like, look at how it's just exploded.
Yeah.
Right? People have livings like just based off of the side hustle. That's a hustle, another hustle, another hustle. So nobody saw that coming. So it's not to say that something can change tomorrow. And what you want to do is you want to position and align yourself to be able to stay ahead of your current competition or even potential competition today.
Or respond, or create something new and test it quickly.
1000%.
Like,
yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Like, that's, it just feels like, and again, it is one of those, even if you just try it on a team within your organization and see the fluidity that happens as a result and the constant communication. Like, I feel like my whole career I've been wanting to have this transparency.
Yeah.
And this just offers so much transparency to people that are working on the things, right?
Yep.
So,
and Jen, I really want to emphasize on the point you touched on earlier, where you said, it boosts team morale.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So employee satisfaction, it's crucial.
Yes.
It's crucial to your deliverable, because if the people that are working aren't happy, then your deliverable does suffer at the end of the day. And there's so many options for them out there.
Yes.
Right? So working on a team where they get to see a tangible result or a version of it as soon as a week.
But they also have full context.
Yes.
They understand what they're delivering to the business.
100%.
Like, in what universe do developers have that kind of deep context, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
And that's what's exciting to me as someone who's acting as a product owner now is I have that deep connection to developers to fully understand their craft and how they deliver and what's important. And that has been remarkably. Sorry, and Myron, you had something to add to that.
Yeah, I was going to add to the house analogy, and so. How to use quality in an agile context to build sort of this end-to-end delivery pipeline. That is really important so that you can, I think one of the things you said, Jen, is react to the market. And so let's think about the technology we're building or the features that we're building as enabling technology for people to compete in the market.
Right.
And when we think about that and we include quality in there and we actually put that into that delivery pipeline, we're building a situation where, let's say you have a house and you install an HVAC system for air conditioning.
Yeah.
You install that system and let's say it's a state-of-the-art system and it works fine, but it's set to 20 degrees. How do you change that to, let's say, 22 degrees or 23 degrees if it's really cold outside? Well, you install like a thermometer that's combined with a heat sensor. Now, you want it to be 24 degrees, so you change it. And this is your release N+1, right? All right.
Interesting.
We have a competitor that's putting something. They literally read our press release and they did something else. That's better because they have the market. So now we need release N+1. What do? We move that over there. We send the team off to work, but now we need a thermometer or a thermostat that tells us when we're actually at 24 degrees.
Right.
This is what putting quality into the end-to-end delivery pipeline. This is how that allows you to build an elegant software system that allows you to compete in the market. And I think that is what we're striving for as a quality practice at Rangle.
Yeah. How exciting. Yeah, no, it really is. Like,
It really is.
Who's doing it well, guys? Who out there is like, they're killing it? Like they got it early or they got it late. I don't either one, but that they've adopted it and they're doing it well and you admire them.
So I touched on it earlier. So just because I have been out in Silicon Valley at that time, I couldn't fathom how ahead of the game they all were.
Yeah.
Right? I had friends that were working at Netflix.
Yes.
I had friends that were working at even Cisco.
Yes.
Right? It's a giant campus. It spans blocks. If a company that size can go lean, agile, work with those methodologies, and continue to produce results that they're doing today, Yeah.
Well, and I think we can all argue that,
Yeah.
or not argue that, agree actually that Netflix is an incredible customer experience.
Oh, beyond,
Yeah.
beyond,
Right, like it
beyond.
just even their contextual. So those releases, that
Yes.
constant fishing for
Yes.
product information is, and they're leveraging it obviously.
100%,
right. And to
yeah.
your point, it's not just like I don't know that I've ever had a bug on Netflix. I'll be honest. So the commitment to quality is
100%.
obviously there
Because it's built into the system.
Yes.
Right? Like, because you're testing periodically, releasing periodically. There's no big bang surprise to when a release comes out.
right.
There's no like, like you were saying earlier, cross your fingers, hope it doesn't crash.
Yep.
There's none of that uncertainty. You've removed that. You've mitigated it from such an early on that you've saved yourselves money,
Right.
stress, and gotten more customers early on. Like what better?
And when I started thinking about this topic, I thought to myself, early days of BlackBerry or iPhones, and I'm going to date myself real quick here, but when I think about it, remember it was like, oh man, like the next release is coming up, and everyone was like, and then it would go out and people would freak out because, oh, I don't want this feature, so people wouldn't update their phones on purpose.
Yeah.
But now, when's the last time you ever had a huge release where you even noticed any substantial changes
Nope.
to your phone?
Right.
Because they're just all the time just putting it out there, right? So
Yep.
there's no more like, well, I'm not updating. I don't like the new Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever, right? So
I mean, like,
Yeah.
I want to date myself as well. Like, I remember the days when people were like literally buying extra Palm Pilots and putting them in a deep freezer,
No.
to what end?
so that they didn't have to switch to the BlackBerry or other things that
my
were coming
gosh.
out when they knew that the company was going down. People were literally doing that.
Crazy.
And so, talk about being afraid of releases compared to now.
What are you guys excited about? Like, I see this as being sort of like we're just getting to the crest of the curve where people are starting to really understand. Like, so from the early days of Toyota and Toyota really being the, early adopters or evangelists of this system, what are you excited about for the next, let's say, 2 years? Because in tech world, that's 10, right?
Yeah, that is
yeah.
so much, so much. Specifically at Rangle, I'm excited to start strategically partnering at that level because now we've reached that age where everyone's understanding, aware, and ready to like run with it. So they're craving for it, they're asking for it, versus 10 years ago, you would have probably walked in and they would have been like, Agile who? Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that anymore. Everyone's aware. Everyone understands the value it brings. We have proven results in the market, and they want them. They want them for their own organizations.
And now you get the chance to not do that. We're doing this. It's happening this week.
Yes.
And then starting on Monday, this is our new way of doing it.
Yes.
You now actually get to, okay, let me guide you through this. Let me help you out.
And also like take them on that journey and be on that journey with them. Help them out, help them navigate. And also what excites me further is we learn from what they learn, right? So as I learn to navigate their web and come up with the right approach for them and I tailor it to them, that's a new data point for us at Rangle. So then now we improve our practice. Did you see continuous improvement? Shameless plug.
Just saying.
Just saying. Right? So for me, those are the crucial data points that I look
Yeah.
forward to where I'm like, yes, okay, all right, learn something new today. Okay, now I know what to do when this happens or not,
Amazing.
right? So that's what excites me. And it really, really passionate about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, you're making me very passionate about it.
Oh, yay! I've done my job.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about mandates earlier. This was it.
Oh, man. Myron, what about you? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about leveraging DevOps or enabling technology to accelerate the deployment of service delivery through end-to-end delivery pipelines. And what that means is I think people are starting to ask questions about the value of DevOps. Like, all right, okay, cool. We installed these things. What are we going to do with it? And what does that mean for my ability to compete in the market?
Right.
And so I'm really excited to work with clients, at Rangle clients, to build those systems so that we can actually say, we did X, and now you can change X number. You can change the temperature 15 times a day. We did Y, and now you can change the temperature 100 times a day. And solving those problems for people. Generally in technology, though, I would say, aside, in addition to those things, the electrification of transport. But
I just saw that this
Yes.
week. Yes, that is so interesting.
Oh gosh, especially like in GTA. Come on now.
Yeah. No, but that is super exciting. Yeah, I agree. I can't thank you enough for being here, Payal. And I'm so grateful for you guys sharing this. Myron, thank you. And to all of you, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you found some moments that made you think, or something that made you want to phone call or email our folks today and get started. Because as someone who has recently adopted the Lean-Agile methodology, I have become an evangelist, and working with the two of you has been a gift. I'm really appreciative of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You can follow us on iTunes or Spotify to get further notifications. You can also watch our podcast now on YouTube, so be sure to like and subscribe as well. If you have more thoughts or questions or things you'd like to talk to us about, please connect with us on Twitter by using the hashtag AskWrangle, or you can email us at podcast@Rangle.io. Thanks again for joining us on What's Your Wrangle. We'd love to hear your angle on all of this. Join us again soon. Thank you and have a great day.